Hi, I'm John Giesick. Welcome to the C-Suite Sherpa podcast, where we shine a spotlight on business experts and resources that you should know. Today, we have a special guest, Faith Harron. She is the founder of Esper Collective, where they focus on all things soft skills. Faith, welcome to the podcast and share a little bit about what you do and the clients you help.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the chance to be here. I can boil down my business into two words: soft skills. By soft skills, I often get a lot of folks who say, okay, but what actually is that? They may have the connotation of soft skills soft, as opposed to soft skills necessary. So when I talk about soft skills, talk about things like communication, leadership, strategy, prioritization. How do you actually implement those? How do you learn those? And how do you upskill on those topics? Because I often find that there's a lot of unwritten rules when it comes to the corporate world or building your own business and being successful in your life or your business. And so sometimes you learn things the hard way when you could have training or talk to people and learn from their experiences. I help companies develop upskilling programs for their executives or for their interns who are new to the workforce, learning professional development skills, working skills, soft skills, to also help small business owners who are interested in learning what they need to prioritize and focus on, because it's really hard, especially when things are constantly changing and evolving, and you've maybe not had to have these soft skills in whatever previous career or business you were running, but really key to have them in the future going forward for you. This is a topic that I've seen a lot of need come across, especially post-COVID, when the isolation from others in a lot of ways has caused their people skills degrade a bit, right? And so thinking about ways and strategies to relearn those things that you may have had less exposure to is really important, especially in today's world.
You bet, Faith. Relearning and maybe perhaps learning them for the first time. You mentioned people's new entry into the workforce. Playing well with others is a learned skill, I'm sure. So, Faith, tell us a little bit about who your customers are and the services that you offer for them.
Absolutely. So on one hand, you have very large businesses who often have new workforce, people coming in, but they also at the same time have leaders who are leading these people who sometimes have different priorities and have different, whether it's generational difference or some other difference when it comes to the business side of things. They may not quite know how to interact with this new workforce, while the new workforce also doesn't know how to interact with them. And so from that perspective, helping both groups understand what leadership tactics are really important and impactful from the leadership side of things. And two, for the people who are just coming into the workforce, understanding how do you prioritize or sequence your tasks most effectively? How do you communicate with executive presence and credibility when you're talking to your leadership? What sort of issues do you need to escalate to them? And how do you do that in a way that's most effective, both for the leader and also for yourself? On the small business side of things, you have people who are coming for the first time and they're trying to understand, what do I need to do next? For example, working with someone at the moment who is launching a creative business, who wants to be a music teacher and offer lessons to people, both from a broad scope as well as one-on-one lessons. And so from that perspective, what does he need to do to get his business out there? What are the ways that he needs to upskill himself so that he can be the type of leader to have that worldwide international impact that he's looking for? Helping people on both of those spectrums understand from the soft skills perspective, one, what do they need to do? And two, how do they actually get there? I think of myself sometimes as a carrier pigeon, okay? The carrier pigeon goes and they home in on an issue, right? But it's not just about homing in on the issue. It's also about understanding what you need to do to solve the problem. So from a goals perspective, you may have this big, bold goal. Not everything to get to that goal is controllable. There may be aspects of it that aren't controllable. So what do you actually need to do? Achievable, tangible, manageable steps that you can take to start working toward that.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you explaining that, Faith. I wanted to ask too about, we talked before I hit the record button about differentiation, and you mentioned something about your 3PG method. Can you share with us what that is? I think the listeners would love to hear about that.
The 3PG method starts with the G, which is goals oriented. A lot of times when I'm working with companies, they go, okay, we're having this discussion, right? And it's a good discussion. We want to have this discussion, but we don't have a goal that we're working toward in this discussion. So it either goes really long, or we've had this great discussion, but we have no action items coming out of it, no assigned responsibilities. So no one's carrying this idea forward. So we start with understanding what is that goal. Then we move into the problem. So that's the first P. What problems are we trying to solve? Again, could be based on the goal, could be entirely independent of the goal. What are the problems? Then we talk about the passion. What are the things that really drive us? What are the things that we really want to be doing? And what are the things that we really care about? And then we incorporate preferences. I think preferences is a piece that not a lot of people hit on, but is super key, because when it comes to your individual company or your individual self, you have a series of things that you would like to do and a series of things that are maybe less you or less in line with what your business values look like, for example. And so giving some advice that might work for this company or this person, that advice may not work for you. So it's important to understand the preferences piece so that, again, you can have a full picture. And then you go back to the goal. And from that perspective, all the things that you uncovered in the problem, the passion, and the preferences, you may need to revise your goal. You may need to add elements to your goal that have a time nature or a value nature, right? And so it can be an iterative process. Not every tactic is going to work for you or your company, but and going forward from there while making improvements and adjustments along the way is really key to how I work with companies as well.
Yeah, that's great. I could see someone needing someone to guide them through that process, that try, do, fail, adjust process. There's just so many options. Someone needs to help them narrow down. Otherwise, they use the shotgun approach and end up spinning their wheels. I totally understand that. In your space with the consultant and the teaching part, what do you think your biggest hurdle is going to be over the next 5 years in your industry?
That's a really good question, John. I think it comes down to two things. One of them is AI, and one of them is return to office. A lot of people talk about what are the things that AI can do or replace, and a lot of people have this intense fear that AI will replace them. I've always liked the idea of AI augmenting you, particularly when it comes to soft skills. There are a lot of things soft skills wise that AI can't do. And so when you talk about tasks that AI can replace, it might be able to streamline your calendar for you, might be able to book and help you prioritize tasks, but it will not be able to replace you sitting down with your colleague, telling them what they need to do to improve or sharing feedback on their performance. And so those are things that you will need to continue to have as skills yourself. And often the uncomfortable things, right, are the things that AI won't replace when it comes to the soft skill side. That's something that you can continuously improve, but it's also difficult in some sense when you talk about soft skills. I talk to some people who say, oh, well, I've done just fine up until this point. And maybe you have up until this point, right? But the world is constantly changing. The people that are coming into the workforce may have different priorities or different ways of working than you did. And so understanding the tactics that maybe worked for you in the past won't work for you in the future, that's one. Again, on the return to office piece. So that's a really fun one because I think about companies trying to balance between, oh, well, where are my employees going to be versus how productive can they be versus do I trust them? And there's a lot of interesting questions around that. But when it comes down to the soft skills piece, there's a lot of in-person benefits, especially for employees that are young in their careers, to be able to understand and shadow other managers, for example. So on that side of things, I think that there's benefits to that. But again, because of maybe you're just coming into the workforce post-COVID, or you were in the workforce for a couple of years and you came back post-COVID, that soft skill degradation is real. And so when you're coming back in person, making sure that that's as effective as it can be is really important as well.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious to know, Faith, if you just do a quick mental inventory of your clients, when you have people come to you with the soft skills issue, is there a theme or is there one specific issue that sticks out that people come to you most often? What's the theme for the presenting problem of your clients?
Yeah, so that's a really good one. I think one of the themes that's been biggest lately is understanding how I can work with Gen Z. Often it's framed from a challenges perspective, like I'm struggling to get my employees to do this, or why do they not know these things that I kind of expected them to already know? Or they're using tools that I don't think are good for the company. I don't think are teaching them the skills that they need to use. From that perspective, it's understanding that yes, there are challenges, but there's also a lot of opportunities. There's also a lot of chances for you yourself to upskill in order to become a better manager and to learn and take some of those skills from your Gen Z counterparts and start employing them in your own life. That might make you a better manager. It might make you enjoy your work more. It's a matter of balancing the two. Yes, there are skills for them to learn, and yes, there are things for you to learn as well.
Yeah, that goes back to what you're saying about, it's ever changing and it's constantly evolving. If you're in an executive position at a company and you have new people coming in all the time, depending on their age, I would assume that every age is going to have a desire to be communicated with differently. There's things that you can do with a 50-year-old that you're not going to be able to do with a 20-year-old. That makes total sense. Good on you for helping somebody get through that because I could see that being a huge presenting problem for a larger company. We're going to loosen the proverbial tie a little bit and do a semi-lightning round just to let the viewers get to know you a bit more personally. I'll start off with an easy one and then we'll take it where you might have to be less lightning and more thinking. So, coffee or tea?
I am a tea person.
Is that all day or just in the morning?
I'm pretty caffeine sensitive, so tend to take a little bit of tea in the morning, but after that, not so much.
What about cats or dogs?
I'm a cat person.
Okay, so let's throw the zombie apocalypse question at you. When there's a zombie apocalypse, what's the one thing, Faith, you're going to make sure that you have with you?
So I'm taking a notebook so that I can write stories of a better world and remind myself as I'm hunkered in the bunker that it's not just the zombie apocalypse, but there are possibilities for a brighter world.
Yeah, there's a light at the end of that tunnel, right? I do like
Definitely.
that bumper sticker, hunker in the bunker.
Thanks.
Faith, what about a favorite movie or series, something that you're watching now or something that was a favorite from the past?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of The Lord of the Rings and the original movies in particular. One show that I've been watching recently that I find very wholesome is the Gilmore Girls series. I love that it's very fall themed, and that's very appropriate for the season, but also just cozy in general.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate that. So, book, how about a favorite book? Maybe an older book or one you're currently reading now?
One good read that I'm currently in the process of rereading, haven't read it for at least 10 years, is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. The methodology that she teaches around creativity is really inspiring.
Let's switch to a bucket list. Tell me two things. Tell me an item that was on your bucket list that you already checked off. If you don't have a bucket list, just pretend you did. And item that's on there now, but you will definitely accomplish.
So it took me 19 years, but I went abroad for the first time after my first year in university. The first country I went to was Tajikistan, which I think is probably very few people's first country to visit outside the US, but that was a fantastic time. And then another thing is writing a book. I've written 16. I just finished writing my 16th book this past Sunday. So that's something that I know a lot of people have on their bucket list. And if anyone has any questions about writing books, always happy to be a resource there. Things that I want to do, always wanted to be in a film. I acted a lot when I was in high school, but I have never been in any sort of film. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, that sounds great. What did you say, 16 books? So I just
Yeah.
added that to my bucket list and I wrote down have Faith write a book for me.
What would you write your book on, John?
I'm asking a question here, Faith.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd write a book on people stuff, on the importance of relationships, all businesses, people business, that kind of thing. Let's talk about your biggest obstacle that you had to overcome on your journey through success. What was the biggest thing that got in the way that you made it through to get where you are right now?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think the biggest thing was answering the question, what do I want? What do I want out of life? What do I want to do next? Those questions are really hard to answer. And sometimes it's a lifetime, and sometimes it's what do I do next? And then knowing that there's a lot that I can do next. And I think the biggest part of that was listening to myself, trusting in myself, and getting over seeing uncertainty as a black hole and I don't know what's coming and having that be really frightening. But now being able to trust in myself, being excited about the future, that uncertainty is no longer carrying fear with it. Instead, it's carrying possibility. And I'm thinking about all the opportunities that are there. If I don't know exactly what's going to be the next year for me or the next 5 years, I know that there's so many things that can be. And that in itself is very freeing.
Oh, yeah, that's a great mental shift to take that energy of fear and turn it into excitement and possibilities. That's cool. I like that.
Thank you.
Well, Faith, I appreciate you playing along with our lightning round. So, as people watch the podcast, they're going to want to reach out to you. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn at my name, Faith Harron, or directly through my website, espercollective.com.
Great, Faith. And we'll include all your contact information in the podcast notes so people can get all the details about how to contact you. I appreciate you taking the time today. I had fun talking with you, and let's connect soon.
Thank you so much, John. Take care.